the owner and leader of ICF Building, in with me. How's the show been for you so far?
It's been a lot of fun. I come regularly, and it's good to see some familiar faces, and also to see products and vendors that we use and or looking at.
Yeah.
It's really just it's a very fun experience. It can be overwhelming at the size of it and the sheer volume of information.
All right. Well, let's try and share some of yours. Maybe just for people that don't know who you are, bit of an origin story. Who are you? How did you get into this? What do you do?
Sure.
And just take us through a bit of your background.
Sure. So my name's Dave Phelps. I'm the owner of ICF Homes. We design and build unique insulated concrete form, concrete houses. I started 20 years ago looking at all the different ways you can possibly build a house.
Yep.
And 2x4, 2x6, post and beam, SIP, steel frame. And it came across the insulated concrete forms. And I have a degree in physics. And so I looked at that methodology and immediately saw both the strength and the thermodynamics of that exterior envelope would be superior to anything else that I was looking at. So I said, okay, this is how I want to build. I looked around and there was really no one who knew much of anything about it. There weren't any builders who were offering that service. I've always been a kind of can-do. I'll figure it out myself. If I put my mind to it, there's nothing I can't accomplish.
Sure.
And so I designed it. I got my contractor's license to get the financing, and then I built my first ICF home.
So prior to that, had you built anything growing up? Were you the Lego kid?
Yes.
Building huge towers?
Absolutely. So that's a great point. I was a Lego kid. I love Legos to this day. I still occasionally.
Okay. Technics.
Yes. And so that really was another kind of neat, fascinating thing. If you're not familiar with how the insulated concrete form blocks come together, they stack like Legos.
Just talk us through, for anybody that doesn't know what insulated concrete forms means.
Yep.
To break that down for us from a layman's perspective.
Sure. So insulated concrete forms, they are your traditional poured concrete wall, but instead of a metal pan holding the concrete wall up, we stack styrofoam blocks, and they typically run 4 feet long, 16 inches tall, and they're integral tied from the inside to the outside. So we stack those blocks like Legos to the shape of the foundation or upper levels. Then we come back and we put our rebar in for the added strength. And then we literally pump concrete in from the top, filling it all the way up. And now we have a wall that's cast in place. It's encapsulated with insulation, so it doesn't see the outside environment. It doesn't see the effects of the inside environment. And so that the footer is at a steady temperature level.
Right.
And that's where we actually get our passive geothermal heating and cooling capacity of an ICF that you can't get in any other building methodology. And, a lot of folks are familiar with geothermal heat pumps.
Yeah.
Well, we're building houses that are geothermal. They're passively geothermal. They will actually heat and cool themselves based upon earth temperature, regardless of what the air temperature is doing. So when it's, 89 degrees outside, the footers are 60 degrees. That concrete wall is following that earth temperature. When it's 10 degrees outside, the footer's 60 degrees. So you've got a head start on heating and cooling your house. And again, so we just use a fraction of the energy to actually heat and cool a house.
Right.
But we can make it look beautiful. So it doesn't look like a cinder block.
Well, I mean, that's I think the picture that pops into everybody's mind when you say concrete house. No design, boring, gray.
Right.
Like I don't really want to live in a warehouse.
Right. So that's
how do you overcome that side of it?
Yeah. So that's where we really push our marketing side. So we have kind of a three-legged approach. We show the beautiful finished houses. They're gorgeous. But we also show in process. So we talk about the technical side of how we build certain things and how they're unique to our concrete homes. And our third leg is the educational, where I do a whiteboard series where I talk about either the physics of the houses. I will talk about best practices with heating and cooling systems. So we go from a very technical to mid-level how to the finished beautiful product.
All right. So for anybody that doesn't understand the benefits, the advantages of concrete as the building material, what are the main advantages in this type of home?
Sure.
Why should I have one of these rather than a traditional stick build?
Yeah, great question. I like to ask, why are we still building out of wood? But
Yeah.
So why would you build out of a concrete house? So we have a house that doesn't rot. It doesn't really age because it will last for we're building houses that last for hundreds of years,
Okay.
not 50 years.
Okay.
It doesn't burn. And so we have had some examples in California where you have entire neighborhoods wiped out. These houses don't burn. And so they will survive wildfires. We also have examples of these houses in very high hurricane areas where the entire neighborhood is wiped out from a storm surge. And the only house that's left is the ICF house. Same example with tornadoes.
Yeah.
The only houses that are left. So we're building houses that are sustainable in the sense that it can survive whatever nature wants to throw at it.
Right.
It's going to survive. We're not going to rebuild it every season when there is some kind of event, natural
And
event.
is that common to all ICF stroke concrete houses, or is part of the way you design them going to play into their ability to withstand those natural disasters?
Absolutely. So there is a fundamental core strength to it with certain aspects.
Yeah.
If you're designing for flame resistant, you're not going to put wood siding on the outside of the house.
Correct.
If you're designing for wind resistance, you're gonna have the walls that are strength, but you're gonna look at your windows. Your windows are going to be needed for a different level of protection.
Yeah.
So yes, the fundamental walls themselves give you the basic structure of the house. Your peripherals, how you attach certain things to the house, will be unique to the environment you're trying to protect.
Okay. Now, the big question I think for anybody is going to be, if I build a traditional house versus a concrete house, what's the cost implication?
Sure, we get asked all the time that question. What I say is, when you look at custom home to custom home, we run about 5 to 10% price more for this equivalent house.
Okay.
The benefit to that, and we use the term operational cost of the house. So if you take your mortgage and your utility bills and you add those together, and that's the operational cost of the house, it costs the same to live in an ICF house as it does a wooden house. The
Okay.
difference is the mortgage is smaller, but your utilities are bigger. So your return on investment for an ICF house is day one.
And I guess the longevity that comes naturally from
Absolutely.
building with
So now
concrete,
if you look at
a lot less
longevity
maintenance.
yes,
And I would imagine that heating and cooling, there's a lower energy requirement because of the natural properties, et cetera, et cetera.
a lot of our clients want to build net zero or be off grid.
Okay.
So we're going to provide them with a structure that requires about the third the energy requirement per square foot
Yeah.
as a conventional wood built house. So now you're going to use less solar panels to actually power your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
We build a structure that can use less.
If I remember correctly, the first one you built was your own one.
Yes, yes. So
Why?
that's why? Because no one else could do it. I
Okay.
looked at as a someone with my background looked at it as a scientific approach. I wanted to be able to build a house that met my needs, what I wanted in a house. And so no one else could do it. And I said, begin, I'm kind of a bootstrap kind of guy. I can figure it out, do it myself. So I designed and built my own. At that point, I realized, no one else can do this. I just did it. I understand the why. I understand the what. Now I know the how.
The how,
Right.
yeah.
So I got the big three.
Right.
I'm going to build a business around this.
Okay.
And so over the next few years, I built the business around it to the point where I could resign from what I was doing primarily at that stage of my life to focus solely on the custom one-of-a-kind homes.
So you were a science nerd.
I was a science, and I still am proud science nerd.
Okay, but you've brought that into home building to the benefit of the homeowner eventually, because
Absolutely.
they're getting the best of both worlds.
So, that goes back to our marketing messaging and to show that we are an expert in our area of the world. We are an expert in what we do.
Sure.
And so we utilize that in both our educational content on our marketing platforms to show what we know and what we can do. And again, the what, the why, and the how.
Sure. And I mean, you've done a lot on the educational side, haven't you?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about what that entails.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of educational video content. And again, from anywhere from as technical as what I call about our whiteboard series, where we're looking at basically physics 101 on how these houses perform and why they perform this way, to how we build it, how we run the electrical wires through the exterior walls, to how we connect the floor systems to these walls,
Yep.
To the how of what makes these slightly different than a conventional wooden house, to the finished product. So it doesn't look like some drab cinder block concrete warehouse that's ugly that nobody wants to actually call home.
So let's move a little bit. I was going to ask you about your first project, but obviously your first one was your own.
Yes.
Let's talk about your second project then.
Yeah.
The first one you built for somebody else.
That was fun.
Tell us about that
was
one.
So much fun to actually take that knowledge that I had gained and then to work with someone else to work with their vision, their creativity.
Yep.
Because what we start with a concept, an idea, and then we develop the plans, and then we develop into the engineering, and then we develop into the interior designs, and then we go through permitting, and then we build it. Doesn't really matter what my vision is. It has to be their vision.
Sure.
And so that drives the communication from, again, the concept to key. We work with, what's their vision, getting their ideas out, and then still staying within budget because, we live in a real world where we have budgets we have to live with. And to meet some visions and still maintain budgets. And most of our clients are building their last house. So that other than like some kind of lifestyle event change, but they know that maintenance is an issue. They don't want to deal with maintenance. They don't want to deal with utility bills. They want to live in a house that is structurally sound and safe for the duration of their life. I believe when you're selling a product and you have an informed consumer, it makes the sales process easier and more understanding. For us, though, there's a limited market understanding of the technology. So the next phase, and what we've been doing for the last couple of years, is proactively educating those who want to build a custom home, aren't aware of the technology.
Dave, thank you so much for coming in. It's been fun.